Hey there, comic book fans. I'm taking a look and making a video today just because I was reading something old. It's actually, I don't have the original comic anymore. It's from this Legions of Monsters hardcover, which came out in 2007. I probably got it a couple of years later, back when I was buying trades and hardcovers of stuff because there was not a lot of monthly comics I was getting at that time. But I just read this one comic again for the first time in, I don't know, decades. And it's this Marvel Premiere Legion of Monsters issue. Marvel Premiere number 28 from 1976. What's the month on it? February 1976. I didn't get it when it was new. So I probably got it like a year later. So I was probably around 10 or 11 when I first got this issue. And I remember this issue. I actually did not remember the contents of this issue at all. I only remember it because back in the olden days of 1977 or so, I lived in the suburbs of New York City is where I grew up. Never went into the city, but lived in the suburbs. So there was, there was different kind of neighborhoods that, just roads people lived on, basically. And no comic shops. The only comics you could get were at the local 7-Eleven or the local Stout Steve's or wherever they sold comics. But the other way you got comics back in 1977 was somehow amongst your friends and around the grapevine, you'd hear so-and-so down on Central Avenue is selling comics. And you'd go down there and say, it was funny because it was usually just some kid. And checking my microphone because I don't think it was working properly last video. So you'd go down to the street. Usually you'd go down to the guy's street, and either there were kids playing, and you'd ask them, "Is so and so here? Is he selling comics?" Or you'd go right up to the kid's house and knock on his door and say, "Hey, is so and so here? Here he's selling comics." And his mother, sister, whoever would go, "Johnny, come here, someone's at the door for you." But it was funny. That's what we used to do. We used to hear some kid was selling comics on some street in some house. We'd go down there and knock on the door. But this particular comic, I remember because, like I said, I was about 11, let's say. And we'd heard word that so-and-so was selling some comics. We went down to a street. And I think this was one of those times there were kids all over the street playing. It was a little dead end. And so we went up to this one kid and was like, "Oh, here's so-and-so selling comics." And he may have been that kid, he may have been another kid, but it turns out there was a bunch of kids on that street selling comics. And this one kid who we were talking to must have been 14 or 15, older and more jaded than we were. And I remember just looking through some comics. Actually, my friend was looking through the comics. I was looking over his shoulder, and this comic was in the pile. And the 14 or 15-year-old just went, "Oh, God, not that comic. I swear to you, every kid on the street has that stupid comic." And I had never seen it before. And sure enough, we were buying comics on the street, and every single kid on the street had this one comic. It was like there may have only been, a kid who has... one kid may have only had 10 or 15 comics. One kid may have had 50 comics. One kid may have had 4 comics. But every single one of them had this comic and was looking to get rid of it. So I ended up buying it for a nickel, because, in those situations, you bought your comics for a nickel, a dime, a quarter, or whatever. So that is when I got this comic. It was completely forgettable. I didn't even remember it. But it was I just happened to be thumbing through this book, and I was like, "Oh, let me give that comic a read." Besides that kid going, "Oh my God, every kid in the street has that stupid comic," I didn't remember it. And I also just, in looking up when this came out, that's a Nick Cardy cover. I couldn't have told you at a glance that was a Nick Cardy cover. I don't remember Nick Cardy drawing any comics covers for Marvel, but sure enough, it says on some database online there was a Nick Cardy cover. What's funny about this comic too is it's 18 pages. These are the days when Marvel Comics, for time in the late 70s, were 18 pages. And it's 18 pages with, 2 splash pages even. And it was it written by Bill Mantlo, Frank Robbins, penciling, and Steve Gann was the inker. Not that familiar with Karen Mantlo was the letterer, and Janice Cohen the colorist, and Marv Wolfman was the editor. But a lot of people don't like Frank Ott Robbins' artwork a whole lot, and as a kid I was always iffy on it. I liked his Invaders. I didn't like his Captain America because he gives you a lot. He did a lot of work on comic strips over his career in like the 60s and 50s. That was really nice, but he really wasn't that good a superhero guy. Look at that awkward Morbius pose right there. And there's tons of weird, strange Frank Robbins poses like that. Like I said, if you were to see his comic strip work, I have a friend who owns an original from either the 50s or when he was doing Johnny Hazard comic strip. And it is real nice. But and it surprised me in reading this how much I'd forgotten how much the 70s Marvel monsters were really monsters. With the exception of Ghost Rider, who's Johnny Blaze in this stuff. It's like Morbius is flying along, the living vampire, and she's like, I'm so thirsty, I want to drink some guy. Look at that guy down there, I'm gonna suck his blood. But it ends up being Werewolf. And, getting into a fight. But Morbius is just swinging down to suck the blood of some innocent guy because he couldn't help it. And the werewolf is just tearing him apart. And then, in the story, a mountain appears in the middle of L.A. for some reason. And the story is so strange. They, and then, out of nowhere, like, I'm not even sure how the Swamp Thing got in this story. He was, like, in the swamps in Florida. Then all of a sudden he was on the mountain. It's, they just gave some, like, one sentence somewhere in here, some one sentence, explanation for how the Man Thing got there, and meanwhile, Morbius wants to go investigate, but the werewolf just wants to kill him. So he's just trying to kill Morbius. So we get Morbius trying to kill the werewolf, then the werewolf trying to kill Morbius, and then this guy shows up. What's his name? Starseed. I like this drawing. That's a pretty nice drawing by Frank Robbins. I like that Starseed one. And Starseed gives his story about how, back in caveman days, some crazy aliens came and stole their mountain. And there were people living in the mountain. Starseed was, ancestors were one of them. So they got stolen and taken off into space, and the aliens lived in the mountain. And eventually there's the mountain in space. And eventually the humans were able to defeat the aliens, but he's the last one left now, so he wanted to go home and he brought his mountain with him. What? Anyway. So then Johnny Blaze wants to help him, but the werewolf wants to kill him, so he jumps off on him to kill Starseed. Then Morbius decides he wants to kill the Man-Wolf. And then Man-Thing is just hanging around back there trying to set Johnny Blaze on fire. Because whatever no sphere burns at the Man-Thing's touch. And it's just so violent and crazy that it's like Morbius and Werewolf are just trying to kill each other and Starseed for no reason the whole book. The whole 18 pages. So here he is, it's like, the pain. I love this panel. The pain, I feel fear for the first time in my life. So guess what's going to happen? Man-Thing's going to touch him. Sets him on fire and kills him. And then everybody goes home. But before Starseed dies, he's like, see, I could have cured you all. See that? See that? You shouldn't have killed me. I would have cured you all. And then they just all go home. And I must say, this issue, give it a read. It's kind of nutty. It's one of the nuttiest 1970s Marvels I've read in a long time. And I just picked it up. I haven't read this, I don't know, since 1979, let's say. And I had no memory of what actually went on in it. I just had a memory of that kid saying, oh my God, everybody's got that stupid comic. someday I'll have to buy the original again. But until then, I mean, see if you. I'm sure you can get an original for just a few dollars. And if you want to read this crazy, everybody trying to kill each other story, and then, like this Starseed guy shows up just to get killed. And there you go. I don't know what made me just want to pick this up and read that issue again, but I felt like making a video about it. So go get yourself some Marvel Premiere number 28, and you can read the craziness yourself.